What's going on, boys? Another week of BDE, Big Digital Energy.
Word.
Well, what you guys?
I went back to the.
We're on a streak.
I went back to the Ray of Sunshine T-shirt. Hadn't worn it.
That's
a
a
while.
classic.
I broke it out.
We should actually put that up in the merch store.
Exactly.
The Chuck Yates.
We should.
Sunshine.
I think we should, actually.
Yeah. No, we're gonna do it. People have been hounding us to get more merch, so we'll
Dude,
get some merch.
first of all, how was Midland, man?
Dude, it was great. One, love every time we go to Midland. Every time I go there, I'm just like, I fucking love it there. I actually get a little bit homesick. And so Energy Tech Night was amazing. Had probably a little under 300 people there. Great crowd, great room. That's what makes Energy Tech Night what it is. Tons of great feedback from everyone. So couldn't have asked for a better trip. It was kind of crazy, though. The weather, the day we were driving there was 80 degrees. And by that evening, it was 30.
Freaking
So,
cold.
Cold front just blowing in, and Bossel was riding with me. He's like, "Is it always this dusty?" Like you couldn't. There's like no visibility. You couldn't see anything, and so it was actually super cold. And then the day we left, it was getting back up to 80 degrees. So typical West Texas weather.
Did you see the smoke? Fire smoke? all that
No,
stuff?
not there. Too far down south, but I don't think you had to go up that much further north to see the smoke. And so it's crazy. I've seen a lot of videos on Twitter. You know, friend Oscar on Twitter posted a video of losing all his oil leases to the fires. Felt
Damn.
really bad for him. Everything that he's worked for and all of his surface equipment burning down. So I don't know what the update is on that. Were they contained? I mean, yeah,
I
with
think
that,
they got some snowfall.
yeah, probably. Yeah,
Yeah,
because I
I've-
mean, it was even sprinkling snow a little bit up around Midland, and so you're probably right. But John sent me a video of someone's game camera or trail camera at their feeder, and I could not believe how fast the fire moved across the screen. I'm talking like seconds. It like took seconds to go 20 yards, and so that wind from that cold front coming in just made that thing spread like crazy. So I don't know if they got it fully contained or not, but
Yeah, I think I saw a picture of a snow blanket, and there was comments about, this is a godsend given what's going on with the fires. You
Yeah.
did have a room with a view in Midland, didn't you?
yeah, Midland County Courthouse or jail right outside my window. Made a post about it. It's like been locked up there 4 times. So it's like, I don't know if this is like symbolic.
So I
Looking
didn't,
down from the hotel
Somebody
window.
didn't heed the ear.
Yeah.
well, and I did not know this because in neither place would I function very well. But supposedly you rather get arrested in Odessa versus Midland, you get processed faster and you're out faster.
Well, that's
in
always
Odessa.
just to clear the air. I've never been arrested on like any serious charges. It's always like petty stuff, like at a house party.
Oh, please
or-
define petty.
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah, seriously, dude.
It's like I'm not a hardened criminal, but that's the problem with Midland is like I'd be detained sometimes just in a holding tank for like 48 hours, like not even checked in to the system, and so I could see that. I don't know about Odessa's jail, but yeah, Midland, they'll just hold you there for a long time without even checking you in, so kind of sucks. But yeah, no, it was a good time. Well, we need to go make a roadshow sometime and do a BDE in Midland. That'd
Yeah.
be fun.
We
That'd be a good time.
definitely do.
Week in Austin, and then
Yeah.
absolutely, we
Yeah,
will.
do Alan Gilmer at the drilling info pad. What's he call it?
the
What's
man cave.
Man cave. Yeah, do it at the man cave and then do one in Midland. We'll make it happen. That'd be
Then
good.
we go down to Terlingua. Let's just make a whole road
Yes.
road trip around.
Road trip across Texas.
Ooh, and let's just vlog it the whole
Yeah.
time. The
In an-
4 of us.
In an EV. We'll see what it's like
I
traveling.
need a Prevo with a DW wrap.
Yeah.
Exactly.
See what it's like traveling around in Texas. But anyway, so yeah, I was all tied up in Midland, so I'm kind of out of the loop on what was going on in energy, but I got good old Arkansas over here to Get us-
Kick us off with OPEC.
let me make a motion to change that. My original nickname was Sidetrack, so let's.
you want to go back to sidetrack?
This is kind of like George
No.
George
Native of South
Costanza on
Texas.
I don't-
Seinfeld. No. You're not T-Bone.
You know,
I'm
I
T-Bone.
don't think that- I think that we established you don't
I
get to
did.
pick your own nickname.
I did, and I wouldn't have mentioned it if Jake hadn't come in this morning and smacked this down. But he tweeted about being in a carnival with his kid,
Oh yeah,
had a few tickets left, and had to make free throws.
to win the prize for
to
his
win
kid.
the prize and lost his tickets.
Yeah.
So I coined a new Jake nickname. It's Shaq Slap.
Shaq slap.
Oh, Shaq slap. I like that. Good one, Arkansas.
Sidetrack.
Damn, I love it.
Something a
I'm
little
gonna keep
off
calling
being
you
a native
Arkansas,
of South
sorry.
Texas, and Arkansas is about as un-South Texas as it gets.
All right, let's get
All
this.
right.
Let's get
All
the
right.
show kicked off with some news. What do we got?
OPEC.
Yeah, Javier Blas tweeted out this morning, Bloomberg story. OPEC, as is well known, has decided to extend the 2 million barrels a day. OPEC Plus has decided to extend the 2 million barrels a day through June, Q2. So they've got their next ministerial meeting in Vienna on June the 1st. There are some, I guess, agitations within the cartel in a couple of places. The UAE apparently has a new 1.5 million barrels a day of capacity, I guess, ready to bring online in the quota accounting. They're clamoring for having that recognized, is my understanding. And then the other agitation, I guess, is that, you know, Iraq's economy is in a pretty bad spot. So, Russia, on the other hand, has said that they will focus more on restrictions of production versus exports. And as we've talked about in the past, Russia has benefited from the unintended consequence of sanctions really providing, you know, in an era of scarcity prior to this more recent concern about abundance or surplus in the market, Russia's economy is, in a nutshell, has been booming. And so they are, I think, very, very focused on defending price rather than letting the cartel discipline unravel. And we'll see how these, you know, the performance versus the quotas and the 2 million barrels a day goes before the ministerial meeting. I think another important dynamic, and we've talked about this as well in our price predictions for 2024, is that we're ramping into and accelerating the presidential campaign headed into the summer conventions. And translation into headline gasoline prices is, I think, creating a behind the scenes dynamic. You know, I'm wondering if the arm twisting is already underway.
I mean, U.S. oil stock went up 4.2 million barrels last week. So it's interesting to see like this sort of global dynamic play out as you have, you know, our election is what's really important to us, or at least to one side of the equation. What's the logic on the other side? I mean, I know Russia needs high prices, of course, to keep their booming. What's going on over at Saudi? Because they're the ones that are taking the biggest hit.
Well, let's revisit Chuck's thesis on Saudi.
What was my thesis?
Rig count.
Oh, yeah.
Say, remind me what my thesis was.
Yeah, exactly. Let's go back.
We're not going to talk about charging your Tesla today.
Yeah, there we go. Perfect. No, but I said fundraising, kind of, you know, Energy Fund 7, Energy Fund 8. So think kind of 2015, 16 to 2018, 19. I kept saying, look, if the Saudis really have all this excess capacity that they can turn on, why do they have so many rigs running in the kingdom? And we know all the information you get is false, but just trendology, it was up kind of 2 and 3x the number of rigs, reported rigs running. And you don't feel like you need to be running more rigs if you actually have excess capacity. So I always thought they didn't have it, but now UAE's reporting they have more. Saudis throttled back a bunch, so you got to think they can get back up if need be. So there might be some real excess capacity in the world today that I didn't think there was back then.
I mean, I know that the Crown Prince, has an economic reform program, and supposedly they need $100 oil for that to actually make sense. We'll unpack that maybe in another show, but I think there's something there. That I continue to read about this economic reform, which means high oil. They need to be able to pay for it somehow.
And remember, a few shows ago, the rollback by the Saudi ministry that took down, I think, one of the big OFS names, I forget which one, got smacked around pretty hard on that day after the announcement. They reversed their target for maximum capacity back to 12 million barrels a day. They were targeting 13.
Well,
How much of that is can they deliver on it physically versus let's slow the roll here and not create this perception in the market that there's a lot more surplus coming?
I have 2 corrections. Number one, you said, do you remember the show 2 weeks ago? The answer is absolutely not, because we're the gray hairs, according to Jake. Fuck Jake, by the way.
Give
Secondly,
some context. Y'all sit at a pot of desk in the middle of the room, and Jake said it was segregation.
It seemed to be.
I would have talked shit to Jake because Jake has a lot of gray hair too. So you should have told him to pull up a seat.
It seemed to me precisely timed with the moment that I sat down at the pod.
So you take
and
him-
secondly, I've Collide to tell me what was talked about 2 weeks ago.
yeah, so you
right?
don't have to remember.
I don't have to.
You know, it's an old Einstein
Well-
quote, which I don't think Einstein actually said it, but he
About
said
Collide.
it's not worth indexing information that you can look up in an encyclopedia. So
The
same concept.
The one other thing that I always come back to when we start talking about oil, OPEC, any of this stuff, when I had Roy Johnson on the podcast, 3 or 4 months ago, he said, don't forget that like post COVID, we don't really know what normal is anymore. I mean, because we shut in a bunch of production, what that did to, did pressure build and we
Right.
wound up with more reserves, whatever. What is demand doing? We all keep going back to 2019, but we truly don't know what is quote unquote normal. And so a lot of what we think about certain metrics, like how much was production up or how much did demand grow, could kind of be different in the new world because we whacked at least 18 months, 2 years
Yeah.
out of our economy, and we shut in a bunch of oil, et cetera. So to some degree, it's like until we get more on stable footing and have more years to compare year to year instead of compare to
Fair.
2019 pre-COVID, we may just be scratching our heads a bunch on this stuff.
I don't agree with that. I don't think that that's the case. Like I remember all these traders calling me back in 2020, like, hey, what does this mean that they're having to shut in wells? Are they not going to come back on? I'm like, guys, it doesn't fucking matter. Like, I don't think the physics of or the characteristics of these assets or wells changes. Just like these wells, geology doesn't know that COVID
Although
happened.
I will say, but I will say this: we never before in history had ever taken shale wells, big huge fracs, and let shut them in for 6 months. We didn't know. Now you could make the guess that it's a balloon there, and so the pressure wouldn't dissipate. But there was at least a chance pressure was dissipating through the reservoir, and they weren't going to come back online like they did. So
well, in conventional days, shut-ins as damage, unless it's an extreme reservoir and geology exception, shut-in usually helps you resting. Right. Our problems were water and gas coning because you're pulling wells too hard. It depends on the drive mechanism, et cetera. But it's rare that you're doing long-term damage when you shut a well in. I mean, it is a rest period. You shut them in to take downhole pressure readings. Sometimes you have in shale, like in the Utica, Point Pleasant, a few years ago, I remember, I think it was Gulfport was dealing with undersaturated clays where you had water blockage. And so you've got all kinds of reasons to shut in reservoirs to improve,
That's how
I guess, the health of the reservoir.
It's like if anything, you shut it in and that thing may
we
open
say
up
that,
screaming.
but how much? I mean, basically, we're taking a piece of concrete, right, and we're blasting it open so that stuff would come out. I mean, there's a chance that if you shut that all in, that it gums back up. Now, I mean, it looks like things came back online as predicted, maybe even better than predicted.
Yeah.
And the theory was, but to some degree,
Are you changing the relative permeabilities among the phases and micropores and nanopores and stuff like that? Maybe.
Who knows? I mean, there was at least, And his other point too
Marsh
was
is flexing that he's smarter on the engineering than us right now.
Exactly.
No, I
The
just
dumb
I
finance
just
guy.
have a very worthwhile today in the market reservoir engineering
But
background.
Laura's point too was like demand. Does work from home and stuff change numbers we're used to?
Yeah.
And so his was kind of all of the above.
Yeah.
You know,
I
until we have
didn't
some-
mean to hone in on that
Yeah,
specific
yeah,
thing,
but you know, I mean,
yeah.
just trendology. So sometimes when you sit around and you talk about stuff we've talked about our whole career, OPEC did X, and we go, oh, that should be that. We may be in a little bit of a brave new world.
I guess I just I always, from COVID, this thing always stood out in my mind as I hopped in on this webinar from McKinsey, and McKinsey was pushing the new normal so hard because why? McKinsey stand to gain a shit ton of money from consulting these companies on what does the new normal mean? What does it look like? Well, the new normal actually just kind of looks like the fucking old normal before COVID. So
John Jacoby was Jack Stevens' right-hand man for years, invested all their money. You saw I say, oh, hell, investment banking is just the art of stating the obvious with an air of discovery.
Sure.
One of my favorites.
Exactly.
But I would say, one thing I've seen from operating a business is one thing that has clearly changed, which would affect energy demand, is the amount of sales calls that happen on Zoom instead of having to fly somewhere or even drive somewhere. I mean, that
it has become quote unquote normal.
It's normal.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so there definitely has been some effects.
The courts actually got faster from my friends in the legal who work in certain courts. The Zoom.
Oh, because they do it on Zoom.
Yeah. It was a lot faster during that time.
Yeah.
Well, let's roll from OPEC into Toby. EQT.
Yeah, I was gonna say, sounds like they're
and
shutting in wells.
Let's do this. Our guest 2 weeks ago, Josh Young, actually hammered away on this point. So, what happened?
Why don't you recap Josh's point?
So, Josh's point, he was trying to be really careful about not saying a name, but he made allusions to a very large natural gas producer adding to their rig count, not throttling back production. And I mean, he was hinting at EQT, obviously. Anyway, so EQT announced sometime this weekend, I think, that they're actually going to curtail production. They're going to cut back a BCF a day, which I think is about 15 to 20% of their production because gas prices suck.
Yeah. I mean, that's meaningful.
Yeah.
Too. So,
yeah, I do think it's, collusion is prohibited in the U.S., and I think it's good market leadership in terms of what everyone in the peanut gallery has been clamoring for as we talk about weeks in which gas-directed rig count rises and the volumes continue to march ever higher. And so there was one tweet by War527 who does really good work, a lot of thoughtful content. He was, I think, poking a little bit and characterizing in the press release that EQT put out the curtailment as being strategic, and just pointing out the fact that is, at least from a whether it's strategic or whether it's, I guess, tactical, how does that jibe with a pretty loud motto of unleashing American LNG? I just thought that was humorous.
Yeah, I saw that post.
But so
sub $2 economics are just not compelling in the market.
Well, I think it's interesting you brought up a point about collusion. Hold on, Chuck. Sorry to interrupt you, but the point about collusion, it's actually interesting because, I've always thought, if American E&Ps actually work together, and we're a little bit unified in their production, it'd be better for everyone. And what's the term? What happened in 2020 with the Railroad Commission? What's the term when they essentially ration production for the MPs? There's a certain term.
Proration?
Yeah, is it proration? Okay.
That might not technically be it, but that's what it is.
Yeah, that's what it was. That's what it was referred to. How's that different than colluding?
When the government does it, it's always okay. I mean, somebody walks up.
Maybe that's the answer.
No, that's the exact answer. Is when somebody walks up to you on the street and puts a gun and says, "Give me your money." That's theft, and it's against the law. And when the government does it, it's called the IRS.
Yeah.
So
yeah, but you remember? I don't know if you guys remember, but we had started an initiative. We even made hats that was called BroPEC, And what's funny is, quick side tangent story, but Trump's Department of Energy was talking to me and Jake, and it's like, dude, we're just looking for like any ideas. Like, do y'all have any ideas? You have people in your network that have ideas? And we sent them a picture of a bro. Actually, I made a meme of Trump wearing a BroPEC hat, and it made its way all the way through the Department of Energy. They thought it was funny as shit. And so BroPEC was almost a real thing. But sorry, what was the
So
point
where I was going to go with this is the two reasons historically you hear about not shutting in production when prices are really low is one, you have debt. And so you screw up coverage ratios. And
beginning of the
things like
Shale
that.
play, that was why are they continuing to pump? They can't pay their bills. They need cash.
I sat down with a commercial banker. I'm like, you're making them hedge 75, 80% of their production. Just get your cash flow and your repayment back from the financial hedge and just don't produce the gas.
Right.
I mean, in effect, you're building an asset. So there needed to be issues worked through on that are really tough, and I don't think to this day banks have worked through that. The second thing is everybody was always scared that if you cut production, the stock market and stock price were so driven by production growth multiples that would really hurt. Well, EQT's up 3% today.
Yeah, so I was just about to say that they're up
this
today.
announcement, and I would think ultimately investors would be more rational of why produce it.
That's what. Yeah, I mean, with EQT being up, it seems like the market's saying, "Hey, this is good, prudent asset management."
But that's what's so funny about like OPEC Plus too, is that a lot of times they don't hold to their commitments because even if oil prices are lower, they need the cash.
Yeah,
the country does.
They need the cash flow. Yeah,
and it's similar to kind of smaller independents that don't have the cash to be able, like they have to make debt service, and they're like, I'm continuing to drill because I need to pay my bills.
Which I always thought was like interesting. Like if you actually thought about the optimal capital structure for upstream oil and gas exploration, like I don't think that E&Ps would hold an asset on their balance sheet. I think you'd have institutions that have longer time preference that can hold it on their balance sheet. I mean, they did this with timber back in the day. And so you actually just have E&Ps that are the operator that operate the asset, but they don't actually hold the asset on their balance sheet. You have institutions that can take a more 25, 50-year approach to operating an asset. So,
well, I mean, what changed in the world is when you had conventional assets, oversimplification here, but generally speaking, your next well was an independent event. It was an offsetting PUD. It may be a new structure we're going to drill. With the shale revolution, all your acreage is the same. So if you think about it, you buy all your acreage. That's a sunk cost. The day after you spent that, sunk cost.
Yep.
So you go, wow, well, prices may have gone down a little bit, but it's still economic to go drill and complete these wells. So you start drilling and you get rigs going and you're drilling. And lo and behold, you look up and you go, well, maybe all in that wouldn't have been economic, but it's still economic to go complete. And so it's the Chinese water torture drill, if you will. Yeah. And that's why a lot of activity keeps happening. And if you're the equity holder of those companies and you have bank debt, think about it. In the conventional world, if things are sort of one-off independent events, and the decline rate of the asset base was 15% or so, a bank could go, whoa, we're kind of in trouble. Let's shut this down. Let's get our money back. And you could, in effect, unwind the company, get paid back. When you've got a rig program going and a completion program going, it can't be stopped just like that. And so anyway, by the time the banks figure out something's wrong, it's too late to shut it down. And you're almost, if you're in the bank's position, you kind of just want to keep growing production because that's ultimately your collateral. So I can't believe the 50 to 60% of PDP that a bank would loan survived into the shale revolution. It should have been 15%, 20%.
And what we saw in late 14 into 15 and 16 with balance sheets in much worse shape than they were when COVID hit and Saudi and Russia had their little skirmish that took crude negative, is you very quickly get into, as you mentioned, it's too late that the banks don't realize, you can, if you do shut it down, you get into a pretty perilous cash flow death spiral.
Yeah.
And having actually lived that in 2009 with a public company that I won't mention, it's pretty. I can tell you, if your portfolio, your production portfolio, is still in the immature phases, and you're drilling extremely high decline rate wells, you got to keep going, because the treadmill's spinning pretty fast.
Yeah.
So, punchline, kudos to Josh and kudos to Toby.
Yeah.
Did the right thing. Market seems to be
I just want to be
rewarding.
clear that this is market leadership. The word collusion has no connection to what,
It's
what's going on
actually EQT's dollar, period.
Right.
Yeah.
They're deciding to
They're
not
sending
sell it.
they are sending a signal to the market, which other companies can choose or not choose.
It's like a congressman wouldn't show up for that kind of campaign contribution, but make it a little bigger and they'll show up.
Yeah. I like the way like Diamondback thinks about it too. It's like, hey, we're just gonna run flat rig program. It doesn't matter prices are going up, going down. Like this is our plan, just to stay flat with drilling activity. So I think some of these larger independent companies, I mean, you have the weight to swing it around. I mean, EQT is doing what, 5 BCF a day? I mean, cutting down 1 BCF, I mean, that's a shit ton of gas. Like, you can make those decisions and lead the market.
How's Elizabeth Warren going to cook her sweet potatoes over Thanksgiving this year?
100%. We had a couple big funding announcements in tech that aren't on the run of show. If y'all want to talk about them,
fire away,
dude. They fit now, but some exciting news. So, our friends over at FairVote Energy, leading geothermal company, closed a $244 million
big
round.
Man.
Yep, led by Devon Energy. So
John Arnold was in on it.
John Arnold was in on it. I had a quote from John Arnold. Let's see what John Arnold said. He said, "The energy trilemma is one of the defining global challenges of our time. How can we generate power that is affordable, reliable, and clean? FairVote has transformed geothermal into a scalable, carbon-free resource ready to meet the moment." And then Devon said that they look forward to deepening their partnership with FairVote to capture the full value of FairVote's first mover advantage in geothermal in the adjacencies to Devon's core business, which I also think is interesting that Devon, mentions that FairVote is a first mover because, I mean, geothermal's been around for 30 or 40 years.
Long time.
But the approach that FairVote is taking is an actual commercially viable approach. And, if you don't know Tim Latimer over at FairVote is the co-founder and CEO, he was a completions engineer in oil and gas for BHP prior to going to Stanford and getting into geothermal. And I remember the first time I met Tim, we're having breakfast and he's telling me just about, using casing designs and hydraulic fracturing. And it's all things that we perfected over in oil and gas during the Shale revolution and applying that to geothermal. So congrats to Tim and the rest of the FairVote team for getting that done. They're just crushing it over there. So really proud of them.
Tim's a great guy. We should talk about geothermal at some point.
Yeah, we should get Tim on the show.
Be great.
All right, Tim, come on.
Open invite to Tim.
And don't hold against me. I didn't invest in the previous round either because I wanted to.
We don't claim Kirk around here. You didn't invest in digital wildcatters either.
Wait, I'm here, aren't I?
You give us your time, and that's what we really care about.
Cash is king. No one cares about time.
We're so blessed.
Because I shut the fuck up.
and can you bring me another digital wildcatters paid for Coca-Cola, please? Because that's
yeah. I actually meant what I said. We love having you around here. Second one is Brett Adcock over at Figur. Figur is a humanoid robot startup building robotics and mashing that with AI. Just raised a $675 million round at a $2.6 billion valuation. OpenAI and Microsoft invested, Nvidia, Bezos, Expeditions. So pretty stacked investor base in this round. And what they're doing is they're going head to head. Actually, Elon Musk replied to this tweet, said, "Bring it on." Them and Tesla are competing on humanoid robots and combining that with AI. And so what I find interesting about this from, there's this video. I'll have Jacob throw up this video. Figur had posted this video of one of their robots watching how to make a pot of coffee and then replicating that process of using a Keurig to make a pot of coffee. But I'm really interested in, like, Brett and Elon are sold on the idea that humanoids will replace humans in manufacturing plants and things of this nature. And I'm so curious about the energy consumption of these humanoids because, $10-15 an hour for a human is pretty cheap energy. I always said, like, humans were the first, the slaves were the cheapest form of energy, and pretty expendable. You look at what it took to build the pyramids, however the pyramids were built, but all throughout these civilizations.
By aliens, of course.
Let's bring this to energy specifically. I saw something today. I got to go find the source where 4 years of human labor goes in to a barrel of oil and we sell it for $80.
Yeah.
That seems like a good ratio.
No, that's what I'm saying is, like, we should actually go run the numbers and, like, deduct, how much energy is produced from a human. And because I haven't taken this into account, like, you look at all the energy demand projections and, hey, look, obviously high performance computing is coming online way faster than anyone anticipated. Space travel is going to be up there. But what about humanoids? All of a sudden we have all these robots running around. What's the energy demand that's needed for those? What's needed on the battery side from a mining perspective?
I was just thinking about, I sent you the headline about the player at the NFL Combine asked about, I guess it's on their sit down interviews, and Tess was asked about space and other planets. He said, I don't believe in any of that.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
there you go.
I haven't been up there, so.
Here's the question. You talked about Nvidia, so it just made me think. Jensen Huang, the founder and CEO, put an Nvidia tattoo on his arm.
I love that dude.
And I'm wondering, do you have a digital wildcatters tattoo on your body?
I don't have any tattoos, but I am about to get frack slap on my quads, frack on one, slap on the other. So maybe I'll put a digital wildcatters tattoo on
that means you're all in, dude.
I love that dude. If you watch videos from him,
he's awesome.
He's awesome, man. I love his mindset towards everything. And I love, like, Nvidia, man, just makes fucking stellar products.
He formed the company with some colleagues that they're at a Denny's diner. I mean,
yeah,
maybe the most valuable company in the world's third. Overtook Aramco, but he started in a diner.
Well, someone had tweeted the other day, I think it was Sequoia that originally invested in him. It was like a $6 million round for like a third of the company. And whoever tweeted it says that has to be the highest performing investment of all time. And someone replied, was like, you're not taking into account all of the dilution. And then that person came back. It's like, wait, this looks like the only round they ever raised. And it was. And I think there may be a little bit more to that because back in the 90s, I mean, companies IPO'd earlier. And so you got access to, capital markets. But regardless, still a hell of an investment for that original investment group. But, Jake and I were talking about it while we were driving the other day because we're like, man, the company literally started off like, we've bought those GPUs forever for our computers. Like that's what it was. It was like a gaming GPU company. And I think this happens to some of the best companies in the world. You start off, like, look at Amazon, started off as a bookstore, and now it's 30% of the internet's hosted on their servers. DW started off as a podcast, and now, we're pushing the edge of AI applications. And so I love seeing companies like Nvidia. I wanted to invest in Nvidia last year, but like I just have such a heart, like it's priced, it's rich, but it's like if the demand for GPUs is just insatiable and they keep crushing earnings, it's like, I mean, if you want to own the best shit, you have to pay for it. And so I don't know when they'll ever slow down, but it's just been incredible to watch them.
Just hope Taiwanese TSMC can continue to build their chips.
Yeah,
That's
probably the biggest risk. It's just supply chain.
And there was a lot of traffic of stuff we've talked about here. A lot is we're not going to have the electricity in 2025 to power all this, much less 2045.
Yeah,
which is what we talked about. I forget whose quote it was. It might have been Musk's quote, but somebody said that this week.
Yeah, I don't know if we talked about it on the show, but Facebook, or now Meta, added John Arnold to their board, and Mark Zuckerberg had a quote about, hey, we need to increase our energy intelligence over here because it's going to require so much for our AI computing. And so I thought that was cool because we've been talking about this for 2 or 3 years now, especially with our Empower event. It's like connecting
my big podcast, reaching out to Mark Andreessen for a big summit.
Dude, it's just a matter of time before Mark Andreessen gets back to you.
I think it was your
DMs.
Spam. He did. I'm sure he reached out.
Yeah.
So for everyone listening,
Chuck at digitalwildcatters.com.
Everyone listening, Chuck has this running DM with Mark Andreessen where Chuck's kind of like the desperate guy trying to chase down a girl in the DMs. He just sends Mark Andreessen, hey, Mark, I have this great idea. We should do this. And he talks to Mark, like Mark's responding. He's like, yeah, another idea that we can add on here.
Well, it's even worse than that because I'm like treating him like he's a peer. I'll get my people together with your people. So,
oh, man, it's hilarious. We'll get Mark Andreessen.
Relentlessly awkward.
Exactly. I love it.
Got to be relentless.
All right, close us out on emissions and ESG fund stuff, and then we'll talk Iran.
Me?
Not me. That was not me.
No, we'll take Iran.
I'll let any of y'all go.
IEA came out last week, I believe, with the emissions report. Energy-related emissions rose in 2023, 1.1% year over year versus 1.3% in 2022. A lot of featuring in the commentary of the mitigation power of renewables. And if you look at the breakdown, you still have China and India ramping pretty hard. One of the biggest, I think, factors in the middle of all this is the fact that, developed nations are still showing the clear benefit in CO2 emissions decline of coal to gas substitution. But there's 98% emphasis on the renewables mitigation versus things like deindustrialization, which is happening in Germany, and the fact that, and I sent this around earlier, you've got the, in the UK, there's and there are a number of these facilities where you've converted coal-fired generation into burning wood pellets. And this particular story was on pellets sourced from extremely old growth Canadian forests, which are offset by planting new trees to replace those that were harvested. But if you look at the carbon sink capacity, I believe, of what has been harvested versus the timeline probably defined as centuries at which the carbon sink capacity of those new trees, when they finally reach that equivalent stage of maturity, is something to consider, because burning wood pellets is at least equal to, if not greater, from a CO2 emission standpoint than coal. But the accounting rules don't require
I've looked at a bunch
emitters
of startups
to record those emissions
in this space, like guys that throw, like, we're going to throw rocks out into your field that are going to everything. And I've always asked about, give me the math that shows me how wood pellets is better from an emissions perspective than gas. And no one actually has an answer because it's really difficult to track.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of the challenges in investing in the space, but also one of the challenges is accounting for it.
Yeah.
And everyone has math fueled by their emotions versus, like, just show me the science and then let's all agree on it. If the science has been proven, then we can all agree.
Yeah.
But it hasn't been proven.
But what I think you don't need math for is to know that shipping wood pellets over to Europe is the biggest grift in the world. I mean, just thinking about it conceptually, it's like, hey, we're going to chop down trees in the Southeast United States, which are a carbon sink. Then we're going to put them on a diesel truck, ship them to a wood mill that has a ton of CO2 emissions. Then we're going to put it on a ship, ship it across the sea, which has a ton of CO2
Well, once it's in
emissions.
the mill, I mean, all that processing
yeah,
into pellets. Which
that's what I'm
yeah,
saying.
okay.
Yeah, a ton of CO2 emissions from that, and then get it on a big ship, send it across the ocean, and then you throw it in, coal-fired plants to, burn with coal, and then market as green renewable energy and all of the energy reports. That's what chaps my ass is like, how is that green energy?
What's the
just,
density
You're
of a
just
wood pellet?
you're just burning infant coal.
What's
in
the
wood
what's,
pellets, right? I mean,
what's the density of a wood pellet versus coal?
I have no idea.
we
all
should
right.
look that up.
A lot less.
It's
Yeah.
gotta be.
Well, if you think about the formation of coal, and I'm not a coal guy, but it, tens of millions of years, and you segregate the carbon that it's captured or the CO2 that it's captured when it was a live plant or
Mhm.
tree, there is subsurface segregation. I would imagine in de facto sequestration of that CO2. You've just got very CO2 rich material, very immature, processing it into pellets and burning it and releasing the CO2.
The irony are these same people that are promoting this also want to get rid of gas stoves because that burning is dangerous
Yeah.
in your house, as similar to your fireplace burning wood in your house because of this.
These like
It's crazy.
none of it
It's
makes
great.
sense. Yes, like there's so many oxymorons, and
This is talking to mom and dad when you wake them up at 1:30 in the morning and your curfew is midnight. Well, this. No. I don't care what you say. That sounds great. No.
My
Yeah.
parents had a
I mean,
great trick on not me because I was a relatively good kid. My older brother is like, if you're past curfew one more time, my parents just threw his shit out on the front porch, his clothes, and locked the door, and he'd knock and no one would
Wouldn't
let him in.
I love it.
It was great.
It's my type of parenting. Yeah, but I don't think a lot of people are aware of how wood pellets are classified as green renewable energy.
Absolutely.
And-
I've seen pitches for this shit.
Yeah.
Well,
and,
I take that picture every time I go to Heathrow about how they're powering it off pellets.
Yeah. and so when you
Like,
tell
who
people
gonna
that, you
tell
lay
them?
out that logic, people are like, what the fuck is going on?
Pretty good to
here?
barbecue though. I'm not gonna I know some people will fight me for it.
I love
And
a wood pellet smoker. Like, just
A wood
lay it
pellets
on
are
the
just
fire.
easier to
Chuck's
control.
got a couple of check bags every time he heads back from Heathrow, 50-pound limit, full of wood pellets for his Traeger.
Sneaking
I mean, I'm
it
a
out.
post oak. I love post oak, but when I don't have that and I just want to be lazy, wood pellets.
You know what we should do? We should start up a wood pellet brand that's imported from the UK just as a joke. And so we're sending all the wood pellets over there, and then
Tree
we're
slap.
actually
Tree
bringing
slap.
them. This is
Tree
import-
slap.
This is imported from
Yeah.
England.
Nice.
Oh, I bet the flavoring's better.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Exactly.
This is-
Yeah, man,
this-
British food
this is-
sucks.
this is their-
Let's-
this is
Whoa,
a-
the
this is
GF might get offended.
British
No.
tea flavored.
That was one of the greatest things ever on TV when John Cleese was asked, why does British food suck so bad? He said, we had an empire to run.
Yeah. Hey, I want to bring up something real
Yeah.
quick.
Yeah.
Have y'all seen the movie Dune?
Love Dune.
No.
Love it. Well, I just started watching the first one last night.
Dude, I told you about
We talked
Dune.
about it
Oh,
last
did you
week.
tell me about it?
Yeah, see,
Oh yeah.
Collide.
We were talking
yeah.
about mining.
Dude, I'm not indexing this shit, man. I got Collide Pro. I just going.
and
There we go.
Anyways, so I started watching it. I haven't finished it. It already seems like a badass movie. I love it. But like within the first 2 minutes, it talks about spice, and like this whole war is over spice, and it's like spice it's critical for space travel. I'm like, all right, this thesis for this movie is kind of fucking dog shit. Like
it's science fiction, dude. You just
need
gotta roll with
you
it,
need
bro.
you need the spice for space travel. What the fuck does that mean?
They fold space, bro, by using the spice. It's a
Using
hallucinogenic, but somehow it actually physically works.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
So is part two.
See,
like,
there's a
liter-
massive hole in the story here that I identified in the first 2 minutes. Don't get me wrong, the movie still seems
The
badass. and
sleeper
I'm gonna watch.
has a way.
Is this Sting like 1984? or
Yeah,
whatever?
he hasn't seen Sting yet because he hasn't finished. But he's
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
oh,
So
wait,
I'm-
Sting's in it. He's seen.
So I'm
Sting.
gonna
Okay.
watch it. I'm gonna watch it, and I'll watch the second one in theaters. But I was just.
Oh, you're watching the
I was watching the first one.
not the old Dune, but the
Yeah, the recent. Yeah,
the recent Dune one.
Yeah.
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 that's good.
there's a recent Dune one.
Yeah,
that's
it came
not-
out. Yeah, no,
Okay.
it's brand new. Yeah,
They
it came
basically
out a
took
few
the old
years
movie
ago.
and they're redoing it in 2 parts.
Okay.
You've
So I
got-
didn't know that
you-
there was an old one. So
Maybe
Oh,
we
it's
could put
great.
up whatever picture you have of you with Sting as
I
part of the
actually
graphic for
I've
this.
never met Sting.
Dude, he's the guy that says that he
Yeah, I'm
makes
surprised.
love for like 12 hours.
Yeah,
in one go.
tantric sex.
He's amazing.
Yes.
He's
All right,
Sting.
let's close real quick with Iran. As we've been doing, closing the show, BDE each week. This is the year of the election. 2 billion people on the planet are going to vote this year. These elections will have important ramifications in the energy world. So March 1st, 2024, the Iran parliament elections happened, along with the Assembly of Experts, which is the Assembly of Experts is 88 clerics who advise the supreme leader. Parliament, 290 seats, 285 of them are directly elected. Here's the deal. Record low turnout, which was seen as kind of a screw you type thing. In 2022, Masha Amini, a lady who didn't want to wear a burqa, was taken into custody, died in custody with the security police. A lot of protests around this. So the low turnout was sort of the protest against that by not voting. Hardliners dominated. And so what does that mean? Mark and I were talking this morning, and I said, well, this just means kind of more of the same from Iran, you know, terrorist attacks, etc. And Mark made the great comment of
More of the same.
yeah. Well, yeah, you said there'd even be more. Yeah. So I think when we roll into our elections, I think Biden's even given up hopes of having the agreement with Iran anymore. Everyone's put that on the back burner. So you're going to get some degree of continued antagonism towards Iran and them firing back at us.
Well,
And-
they're up to no good in the Red Sea, as we've seen. So if they were trying to turn to a more progressive political stance, maybe that wouldn't be happening.
Yeah. Because, I mean, when you think about Iran, I said this about 15 years ago. I was on a panel and they said, make a prediction. And I said, there will be a violent overthrow of the Iranian government, and the resulting country will be young, very pro-Western, might even be our best ally in the Middle East. Because if you look at outside the government, Iranians, they're young. They're very pro-Western. They have more plastic surgery than any other country on the planet. I mean, they are definitely not their government.
Pre-79 Iran was
Incredible.
a picture of modern society and culture.
Yeah.
You remember when the revolution happened and we had American hostages there
Right.
for over 400 days, and that was right in the middle of Carter losing to Reagan.
Yeah.
But and of course we lost a number of servicemen in helicopter crashes due to the failed rescue attempt. So it's been going on. This is not kind of recent sanctions related. This is the solidifying the hardline
Absolutely.
Iranian regime.
We have the second largest Persian population here in Houston. Next to, is number one.
I'm going to say L.A.
It is LA.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
You
Nailed
know,
it.
just sidebar for E&P, Scott Sheffield spent some of his youth growing up in Tehran.
Oh, wow.
Interesting.
Pre-revolution for sure, but
You know something I realized? We stopped doing finger of the week.
Yeah, no, we haven't.
Why'd
done
we
that in a
stop? We didn't get tired of giving it to Elizabeth Warren.
while. Yeah, exactly.
so I had too many baseball targets. But
Oh,
We'll come back next week with the finger of the week.
I was gonna say we give finger of the week to Google
What
Oh,
did they
yeah. That
for
was-
their. Have you seen their image
Gemini.
generator on Gemini? You haven't seen this? How have you not seen this, dude? So, anyways,
I've heard of all the great things about Gemini.
So
but I
it
haven't
tees it
seen
up.
this.
So they have their image generator, and it's extremely biased against white people. And so you would put in like,
No wonder I haven't seen it.
yeah, you'd put in a prompt for like, hey, show me these people in
the
history.
founding fathers.
Yeah, the founding fathers, and it'd make them like black women or just people that weren't founding fathers. But I think it was the New York Times, of course, took it and like didn't report on any of those ones, but then it wrote this story. It's like Gemini makes, you know, minorities Nazis, and they typed in like show me like German Nazis, and the bot would spit out, you know, people of color as German Nazis. And so of course New York Times took it and like Gemini's making everyone look like Nazis. But anyways, you could not get it to generate any historical accurate depictions of people. And even it was like, hey, show me, you know, generate image of current NFL players and then make them all women.
Yeah.
And so anyways,
And I love the from the company, it was basically, oops, we're working on this.
yeah. And
We'll
so like
fix
Elon and everyone are just bashing on them. It's like Google's showing you their true colors. Like you think that their search and everything isn't biased. And you know, it's kind of deeper. I mean, we've always talked about, you know, rewriting history and things of this nature. And so, but anyways, they, Sergey had a meeting at Google, which, you know, he's not even CEO anymore. And I think their current CEO, I think he's going to get axed over, like, I mean, just talk about fumbling the
That's
bag in
huge.
AI over the last year. I mean, he's going to get ran out. But they have this like this internal hackathon meeting, and video came out yesterday, and like they're panning the room, and there's a skinny white dude sitting there in this shirt, and the shirt is a naked chick. Like, I mean, nipples out. Like it looks like he's got boobs and like a women's abdomen. And so that was yesterday's Twitter meme fodder. It's like, what the hell is going on over at Google? Like, it's one thing to have Chuck showing up in like ripped jeans and, you know, sweatshirts, but this dude's like in a very serious AI meeting, and I'll have Jacob pull up the picture of
That's
the guy from
fantastic.
BDE. So lots of interesting things going on over at Google, but I think that they can take finger of the week this week. So we'll get back to
And there goes BDE from the internet.
That's right.
Boom. It was nice
great knowing
knowing
you guys.
We're definitely getting suppressed on YouTube.
Exactly.
Owned by?
So anything big happening this week that we need to talk about? I don't think so. We got Empower coming up at the end of March.
You gotta get your tickets.
Yeah, it's gonna be a good turnout. Everyone's excited about it. So hope to see y'all at Empower, and we will catch y'all on next week's episode.